always look to the past and try to learn from our mistakes, and some things humanity has done are so horrifying that they never want to repeat it. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. I'm your host Emily, and today we're counting down our list of the top 10 unsettling moments from the past historians fear. Coming in at number 10 is the knock in space. In 2003, Yang Liwi made history as China's first man in space. While there though, he experienced something terrifying. He heard a knock. Now back on Earth, Yang described the event to reporters. The sound reminded him of someone knocking the body of the spaceship, just as knocking an iron bucket with a wooden hammer. He could not place the source of the sound. He said it neither came from the outside nor inside of the spaceship. He set out to explore the shuttle for any hints. Staring out his porthole, he saw nothing noticeable on the side. There was nothing faulty inside either. No one could explain the eerie knock. Now scientists have had little success uncovering the sound's mysterious origins when it came back. Returning to Earth, Yang inspected the capsule again, and he and his coworkers were still confused. The crew attempted to recreate the sound, but nothing came close. Because sound needs a medium, the most likely reason was an object physically hitting the spacecraft, but no marks indicated outside contact. The most accepted theory is the metallic surface of the exterior contracted while exposed to the cold vacuum of space. Now other astronauts have reported similar sounds in 2005 and 2008, leading to suspicions that it has to do with the temperature, but they don't know for sure what it was. Number 9. SL-1. SL-1 was a prototype nuclear reactor built in the 1950s in the Idaho desert. The facility was constructed by the Army as part of an experiment to create a portable reactor that could be used to power remote installations. As these facilities would be staffed by military personnel and not atomic scientists, SL-1 was designed to be easier to operate than a standard nuclear reactor. If the reactor crew wanted/needed to control the reactor, all they had to do was raise lower a series of 5 control rods. On January 3rd, 1961, a 3-man night crew, CE-1 Richard Legg and Army specialists John Brines and Richard McKinley had to restart the reactor after it had been shut down for 2 weeks prior for the holidays. Now this task involved raising the central rod only 4 inches. For some reason though, Brines lifted the rod 26 inches, and that's all it took to send the reactor supercritical. Its fuel melted and explosively vaporized, launching the reactor 9 feet into the air and spreading radioactive debris all over the room. This chain reaction took 4 seconds and ended the lives of Brines and Legg immediately. Emergency personnel rescued a heavily irradiated McKinley from the reactor room, but he passed away from his injuries while en route to a medical facility. Now in order to prevent him from contaminating anyone, the ambulance containing his body, which was wrapped in lead blankets, was dumped in the middle of the desert until it could be dealt with properly. While McKinley and Brines were accounted for, no one could locate Legg. After they returned to the site for a brief search, his body was found pinned to the ceiling by a large plug that entered through his groin and out through his shoulder. It took 6 days to recover him via a careful operation that involved guys with long poles knocking him off the ceiling onto a structure below. Number 8. Melted corpses. On December 5th, 1876, the Brooklyn Theater's performance of The Two Orphans had 900 guests in the audience. At roughly 11:20 p.m., a small fire broke out in a backstage area, and in an attempt to calm everyone down, the actors broke character and began reassuring people there was nothing to worry about and that the flames were all a part of the show. But when a piece of flaming debris fell and nearly hit an actor, it caused them to freak out and run. Panic erupted and everyone sprinted for the doors. But while the audience on the ground floor could escape easily enough, the stairway leading to the balconies quickly became blocked and then became crush zones where dozens were trampled to death. The fire department initially figured that the majority of the crowd had escaped because someone entered the flaming building and quickly surveyed the balconies but didn't see anyone. In the light of the morning though, firemen found charred bodies inside the lobby, the stairwells, the backstage area, and the auditorium, some of which had been subjected to such insane temperatures that they fused with other corpses, creating a giant nightmare flesh rat king. Ugh. Now the fire ended the lives of so many people that local morgues were swiftly overwhelmed, and the only way to bury them in a timely fashion was a mass grave in a nearby cemetery. Number 7. The New London School Explosion. On On the afternoon of March 18, 1937, the shop teacher at a school in New London, Texas, turned on an electric sander. Unknown to him, there was a massive natural gas leak under the school. The sander sparked, which ignited the gas and caused a massive explosion that ended the lives of almost 300 students and teachers. It was absolutely horrific. Now, the force of the explosion was so great that a 2-ton block of concrete crushed a car parked 200 feet away. Now, this event is actually why natural gas has a smell now. To reduce the damage of future leaks, the Texas state legislature granted the Texas Railroad Commission regulatory authority to adopt and enforce regulations for the odorization of natural gas in order to prevent such accidents. Within weeks of the explosion, thiol, mercaptan, and odorous sulfur compound was added to natural gas. Now today, the strong odor makes leaks quickly detectable. Number 6. Chicken Poop Prison. Yep, you heard that name right. Chicken Poop Prison. What was this, you may ask? Well, it was a former prison in Lam Sing, Thailand. It was built by the French in 1893 when the French occupied the areas as part of the Franco-Siamese War to imprison Thai resistance fighters. The square-shaped tower is made from red bricks and is 4.4 meters wide and 7 meters tall, with 2 rows of slits along the sides. The tower was abandoned after the French withdrew in 1904, and the resistance prisoners were kept on the ground floor of the tower. Above them was a chicken coop. The floor between them was perforated, meaning chicken feces were able to fall down on the prisoners below as a form of torment. Now, the long-standing impacts of this much-feared torment are still felt in the region today, as there's a Thai saying for those who buck authority that roughly translates to, "Be careful not to get caught in a chicken poop prison." Yeah, that sounds horrible. Number 5. Town of St. Pierre. In the late 1890s and early 1900s, St. Pierre, Martinique was known as a beautiful town, but there was darkness looming over it, a volcano. Citizens of the area were so used to the volcanic activity that no one took it seriously when the fresh steaming vent holes and earth tremors started during April 1902. Then minor explosions began at the summit of the volcano, ash began to rain down continuously, and the nauseating stench of sulfur filled the air, but for some reason they stayed in the town. Even worse, more than 100 snakes slithered down and invaded the town. They ended the lives of 50 people, and people still stayed living there. There are reports of horses, pigs, and dogs screaming as red ants and foot-long centipedes crawled up their legs and bit them. Then on May 5th, a landslide of boiling mud and water from the Atang Set crater leaked and spilled into the River Blanche, and 23 workmen died. This was followed by a tsunami that ended the lives of hundreds of people, and this naturally caused concern in the town, and many wanted to leave. So yeah, people just stayed there and went on with their lives while this was all happening. Even after the whole snake situation though, couldn't be me. Then 3 days later, on May 8th, Mount Pelee finally exploded, sending an avalanche of white-hot lava straight towards the town. Within 3 minutes, St. Pierre was completely obliterated, and of its 30,000 population, there were only 2 people who survived. Number 4. The Dancing Plague. The Dancing Plague was a case of dancing mania that occurred in modern-day France and the Holy Roman Empire from July 1518 to September 1518. Somewhere between 50 and 400 people took to dancing for weeks. The outbreak began in July 1518 when a woman by the name of Fru Tofia began to dance in a street in Strasbourg. She kept up this constant dancing for a week straight. Soon 36 others joined in on the dancing chaos, and in August of the same year, the Dancing Plague had claimed 400 victims. Dancers were beginning to collapse, and it said they died due to stroke or heart attack. No one knew what was causing this reaction, which meant no one understood how to remedy the situation either. By early September, the outbreak began to subside as the dancers were sent to a mountain shrine to pray for absolution. Now, there are many theories behind the phenomenon, the most popular being stress-induced mass hysteria, suggested by John Waller. Other theories include ergo and religious explanations. Number 3. The Halifax Explosion. Regarded by many as the biggest man-made explosion prior to the invention of the atomic bomb, a ship filled with explosives collided with another vessel in Halifax Harbor. The resulting explosion flattened much of the city's downtown core, shore, ending the lives of roughly 2,000 and injuring 9,000. Now the blast is said to have temporarily displaced water in the harbor, forming a tsunami that reached up to 15 meters high, surging over the wreckage of the waterfront. Now the following day, Halifax was hit by a blizzard that dumped 40 centimeters of snow on top of the city, further complicating rescue efforts. Now the city is also home to a cemetery where many victims of the Titanic were laid to rest, and it's said that the body identification system developed at the time of the Titanic sinking in 1912 aided efforts to identify victims of the Halifax Explosion in 1917. Number 2. Jameson crime. You know Jameson whiskey? Well, on an expedition into Africa during the late 19th century, Jameson, the heir to Jameson Irish whiskey empire, reportedly asked to witness humans eating other humans in action. In order to make his horrifying desire a reality, he purchased a slave girl and handed her over to men who ended her life and feasted on her flesh. Jameson is said to have sketched out the gruesome scene, later turning his rough illustrations into a series of watercolors. Of course, for years the family tried to bury the fact and the stories and discredit the witnesses. But his only rebuttal in the case, which reflected badly on him, was that he wanted to see if they would do it. Yeah, so think of that next time you have a drink. And coming at number 1 is the Vipeholm Experiments. The National Dental Service of Sweden was established in 1938. The state of dental health was not well studied at the time, and cavities were widespread. It was suspected high sugar diets caused tooth decay, but there was no scientific proof. In 1945, the medical board commissioned a study on the subject, which would then become the Vipeholm Experiments. The Vipeholm Experiments were a series of human experiments where patients at Vipeholm Hospital for the Intellectually Disabled in Lund, Sweden, were fed large amounts of sweets, including extra sticky toffee, to provoke dental caries. The experiments were sponsored by both the sugar industry and the dentist community in an effort to determine whether carbohydrates affected the formation of cavities. The experiments provided extensive knowledge about dental health and resulted in enough data to link the intake of sugar to dental caries. However, today they are considered to have violated multiple principles of medical ethics, and yeah, that is just horrible. Well, that's all for our list of the top 10 unsettling moments from the past historians fear. Which moment do you think is the worst? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. I'm your host Emily, and we'll see you next time. Peace.